I'm Felicia,
And I'm Ian.
and we are the Paranormal Lovers.
Hello, paranormal dudes, dudettes, and dudays. Welcome back to another episode of the Paranormal Lovers.
Hey guys,
Hey guys.
how's it going? Thanks for joining us for another week, episode 68.
68.
68. Little business right up front. We have a sale going on. If you want to go over to the paranormallovers.threadless.com, check that out. We got $15 t-shirts and up to $35. $35? 35% off everything else. And we have new merch, including the Spring Collection and the Deadly Lovers Collection.
Check out that Deadly Lovers. It's a cool
You can
t-shirt.
find the Deadly Lovers on our $5 tier over at patreon.com/paranormal lovers if you'd like to support the podcast.
Yeah.
What did you love about this week?
Let's see. I had something. Oh, happy Earth Day, guys.
Yeah.
I liked going. My company does this thing where they clean up their mess, which I wish they did it more than once a year. But we go out and all the employees pick up trash and try to make a positive impact on the environment.
It's a damn shame they can't go through and pick up all the little itty bitty fucking pieces of plastic every fucking where.
I know.
I can't imagine how much material's been spilled out there and has gotten in the waterways out there. And they're like, oh, it's fine. They're allowed to. It's fine. Right. They can dump it in the stormwater now. It's fine. I'm like, great.
Not supposed to.
Great, Canton.
But
go right ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, I like that it's Earth Day. It's a cool day.
It's my mama's birthday, so.
What did you love about this week, baby?
I loved that Patty went back to school.
Yeah.
Does that make me a bad mom?
No.
Good, because I loved her, but woo,
she's got a good school.
She does have a great school, and they actually went to the Oconaluftee Indian Village today.
Yep.
On a field trip, which I think this might either this one or they might have one more coming up, but this might be their last field trip of kindergarten.
I wish I had the energy to go with them.
I don't have the mental capacity to deal with 20 screaming, yelling, hyper excited 5, 6, 7-year-olds.
Right.
I can't. I can't. And it's crazy if you think about it, because her class has 5, 6, 7-year-olds in it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, honey, I can barely deal with being around you. Like, I love you, but I have to wear headphones around you. Like, I can't deal with being around all your little friends. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Plus, I have to work. Yeah, it's been a good week, though. It's been nice. I got to go. Yeah. I had to go see a doctor. That's probably what I loved about this week. I actually have a doctor now.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, we're going to do this, this, that, and this. And I said, bet.
Right.
Till I run out of money.
Yeah.
All right. So this week, it's nothing really spooky, nothing paranormal.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. It's an unsolved case.
An unsolved mystery.
Shut up. It is the unsolved case or the mystery of D.B. Cooper.
D.B. Cooper. Why do I know that name?
Well, there was a movie made about it, I think in like the 80s, maybe. D.B. Cooper was not actually the name. The name got messed up. But this is the tale of the only successful hijacking and ransom ever in the United States of a plane.
Huh.
Yeah. And nobody knows who it is.
Wow.
So, on November, and again, sorry about the paper, guys. I didn't have time to type up my notes, so if there's crinkling.
Sorry.
I don't know what to tell you. So this is let's see. Pretty sure this is on the West Coast. On November 24th, 1971, at Portland International Airport, a man with a black briefcase bought a one-way ticket on Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305. This was a 30-minute flight to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. The name the man used was Dan Cooper, and witnesses described him as, quote, a white male in his mid-40s with dark hair, brown eyes, and wearing a black or brown business suit, a thin black tie, a black black raincoat, a black raincoat. It's an old soul, and brown shoes. End quote. Dan boarded the Boeing 727, sat in seat 18E, and ordered a bourbon and a 7 Up. Including Dan, there were 36 passengers on the flight and 6 crew members. Captain William A. Scott, First Officer William Bill J. Rat- Radajek, Flight Engineer Harold E. Anderson, and Flight Attendants Alice Hancock, Tina Mucklow, and Florence Schaffner. Schaffner. Shortly after takeoff, Florence was seated in a jump seat behind Dan when he handed her a note. Thinking he was trying to pick her up, she put the note in her purse. Quote, Cooper then leaned towards her and whispered, Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb. End quote.
Wow.
Yeah. So just so y'all know, the reason like TSA's obviously was like hyped up and whatnot after 9/11, but the reason
Yeah.
our baggage gets checked
Mm-hmm.
when we go through the airport is because of this guy.
Wow.
And also the reason why you should never yell bomb on a plane.
Right.
Florence read the note, which
I
stated,
said bong, not bomb.
Florence read the note, which stated, quote, Miss, I have a bomb in my briefcase and want you to sit by me, end quote. Florence sat beside Dan and asked to see the bomb. He opened his briefcase to show her 4 red cylinders, which she assumed was dynamite, and a large battery and a bunch of wires. Dan told her his demands, which she wrote down and took to the cockpit. Captain Scott had her stay in the cockpit and take notes of what was happening. He then contacted flight operations in Minnesota to relay the demands. Quote, Cooper requested $200,000 in a knapsack by 5 p.m. He wants 2 front parachutes, 2 back parachutes. He wants the money in negotiable American currency, end quote. By asking for 2 sets of parachutes, it guaranteed they would be functioning. If he were to take a hostage, they wouldn't be able to predict which chute he would use, which is smart.
It is smart.
He's like, I might take a hostage, so you can't fuck with either one of these parachutes because you don't know which one I'm gonna wear, motherfucker.
Right.
Although what's funny is he obviously didn't realize that one of them was actually a dummy chute. So that's good. Attendant Tina Mucklow took up being a liaison between Dan and the cockpit. He then gave more demands. Quote, upon landing in Seattle, the fuel trucks must meet the plane and all passengers must remain seated while she brought the money aboard. He said he would release the passengers after he had the money. The last items brought aboard would be the 4 parachutes, end quote. The captain contacted air traffic control at SeaTac, which is what people call Seattle Tacoma International,
Mm-hmm.
to inform them of the situation. They then contacted police and the FBI. The president of Northwest Orient, Donald Nyrup, authorized the ransom payment and told his employees to comply with the demands. It took 2 hours for law enforcement to get everything ready for the trade off. During this time, the plane circled Puget Sound. Passengers were told that landing had been delayed due to a quote unquote minor mechanical difficulty, which, like, good on them for not making shit go sideways.
Right.
While all of this is going down, Dan and Tina are having a nice little chit chat. They just chit chatting. Tina noted his demeanor during this time. Quote, Cooper was not nervous. He seemed rather nice, and he was not cruel or nasty, end quote. So
Well,
he was a nice feller. He was a real nice fella. He was just hanging out.
he just wanted some money.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Tina also noted that Dan had knowledge of the area, correctly naming the city he could see from his window. When she asked him where he was from, he got upset and would not answer. She also questioned him about why he chose that flight. Quote, He laughed and replied, "It's not because I have a grudge against your airlines. It's because I have a grudge." Then explained that this flight simply suited his needs. End quote.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. At 5:24 p.m., the captain was informed that they were ready, and he then informed Dan. Dan had the captain park the plane in a partially lit runway away from the main terminal. Al Lee, Northwest Orient Seattle operations manager, was tapped to be the one person Dan had demanded bring the money and parachutes to the plane. So Dan was like, "You only need one person. I don't want to see anybody else. One person. Bring me my money and my parachute."
Right.
I don't know. I'm talking like that. Al changed into civilian clothes because, like, he didn't want to get shot.
Right.
And once the stairs were attached to the front door of the plane, he made his way over. As instructed, Tina left the plane to retrieve the money. Once she was back on the plane and seated by Dan with the money, he let the passengers go. Once they were all safely off the plane, Tina made 3 trips outside to retrieve the parachutes. Alice then asked Dan if the flight attendants could leave, and he told them, "You guys can do whatever you want." So they left. Everybody but Tina.
Well,
Yeah. So Alice and Florence left, but Dan had Tina stay to help with the rest of his plan. Some things went wrong while refueling, and more trucks were brought out to finish. Dan was growing frustrated that the money was delivered in the wrong bag. He was also frustrated because it was taking so long to refuel. So he removed a canopy from a reserve chute and stuffed it with money. He also began getting frustrated, at how long it was taking, saying, quote, "This shouldn't take so long, and let's get this show on the road," end quote. Once it was all fueled up, Dan gave his orders to the crew, quote, and honestly, there's a lot of jargon in here, y'all, so if you don't know what I'm saying, it's fine. Dan then gave his orders to the crew, quote, "A southwest course towards Mexico City at the minimum airspeed possible without stalling the aircraft, approximately 100 knots or 165 kilometers per hour or 115 miles per hour, at a maximum 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters altitude." Cooper also specified that the landing gear must remain deployed, the wing flaps must be lowered 15 degrees, and the cabin must remain unpressurized, end quote. So he seems to know an
had to
awful
be a
lot,
like a pilot
yeah,
or
about how a
an
plane
engineer.
operates. Like, you got the flaps at 15%, keep the cabin unpressurized, stay at 10,000 feet, only go 100 knots. Like, why?
So he can jump out.
Well, duh.
But
But, like, why? The first
how did
officer,
what a better question is like how did he know that you had to do all that to jump out? Like
that's just it. Because
had to be an engineer.
honestly, even 53 years later, nobody knows who Dan Cooper is.
Wow.
He's never been found.
I've heard that name before
Hmm.
in I want to say it was in a movie
Yeah, that when I was doing the research on it, it like listed a bunch of like TV shows and
that
movies
mentioned
and
him.
stuff that have storylines that follow along this plot.
Right.
The first officer informed Dan that all of those specifications would cause the plane to burn through the fuel, so they agreed to make a refueling pit stop. Around 7:30 p.m., the plane took back off with Dan, Tina, Captain Will, and First Officer Bill,
Bill.
and Engineer Harold on board. What Dan did not know was that 3 planes, that would be 2F-106 fighters and a Lockheed T-33, were trailing them.
Hmm.
Dan then ordered Tina to lower the stairs, but she expressed concern over possibly being sucked out of the plane, which, like,
Yeah.
valid.
Right.
The other crew members recommended a rope from the cockpit, but Dan said no. Tina then asked Dan if he would use some of the cord from one of the chutes that he had already cut up, but he just told her that he would handle it, and he ordered her to go to the cockpit to close the curtains. And when she asked him what he was going to do with the bomb, he told her he would either take it with him or disable it. Near 8 p.m., a light in the cockpit began flashing, indicating that the aft stairs were open. They used the intercom to ask Dan if he needed help, to which he simply replied, no. Quote, at approximately 8:13 p.m., the aircraft's tail section suddenly pitched upward, forcing the pilots to trim and return the aircraft to level flight. In his interview with the FBI, co-pilot Bill Radishik said the sudden upward pitch occurred while the flight was near the suburbs north of Portland. End quote. Tina had attempted to ask Dan to lift the stairs over the intercom so that they could safely land for refueling, but they did not get any response. At 11:02, the plane landed at Reno Tahoe International Airport. Afraid the hijacker might still be on board, armed with the bomb, the FBI agents, troopers, deputies, and police waited and did not yet board the plane. After Captain Will had checked the cabin, law enforcement then boarded and searched the whole plane and found nobody.
Wow.
He was gone.
That's wild.
It is wild. The investigation took off immediately with the gathering of evidence right there on the plane. This included 66 latent fingerprints, um, a clip on tie, a tie clip, and two of the parachutes. They were also able to come up with a series of composite sketches. I think they also got two hairs, like an arm hair and a head hair, and 8 cigarette butts, which were brand,
Raleigh brand.
which I'd never heard of before. In Portland, they looked into the possibility the hijacker used his real name, questioned a poor man named D.B. Cooper. He did have a light record, but was ruled out as a suspect. Unfortunately, the name was messed up when it was reported by James Long and was repeated by several other media outlets. Thus, the hijacker became D.B. Cooper.
Oh, no.
It was truly impossible to know where they should search. The pilots didn't see anyone jump from the plane, but Dan was dressed in black and it was night. The variables of many things, including wind speed and how long he was free falling, can change the trajectory of his fall.
Wait, his name was Diane?
Diane. Well, that's the name that he went under. We don't know what his name is,
Right.
but that's what he said his name was. He said, "Hi, my name's Diane. It's nice to meet you. That's my husband, Jack."
I'm going to ask him now.
Like, Dan? Let me tell you what, if Dan was in his 40s hijacking a plane in 1971, he looks damn good for his age now, okay?
He's a time traveler.
He's a fucking vampire, is what he is.
I could see that too.
They tried several searches and even recreated the flight with a 200-pound sled that they pushed out of a plane similar to the 727. Nothing ever came of any of their searches. Well, that's not technically true. They did find the body of an 18-year-old Barbara Ann Derry. She was suspected of being a victim of suspected serial killer Warren Forrest. So sad on that, but also I guess good for her family that they found her remains and they could bury her.
Now, what happened?
So they were searching for DB Cooper, but they found a dead body.
Oh, wow.
And it was 18-year-old Barbara Ann Derry, and she was thought to be a victim of a serial killer named Warren Forrest.
Huh.
Yeah. But they never found any clues whatsoever to lead them to Diane.
Right.
The FBI released the serial number of the ransom money, and some newspapers even posted rewards for any of the money returned. But to date, now this is a little complicated. To date, no one's ever come forward with like any of the money, as in like it circulated, like he like bought something with it. No one's ever reported any money ever coming through like that.
Right.
Northwest Orient did receive a payout for $180,000, so they got some of their money back.
Right.
Now, in 1980, almost $6,000 of the ransom money was found by an 8-year-old boy who was raking the riverbank for a fire.
All right.
Yep. He
Strange.
unearthed 3 packets of cash. Two of them had $120 bills, while the third only had 90. These were found about 10 miles or about 15 kilometers downstream of Vancouver, Washington, on the Columbia River. The way the bills disintegrated led investigators to believe that they had been carried downriver versus buried on the bank. This changed where they had initially thought he had landed, but science. Sediment found above the cache matched what was moved after the area had actually been dredged after the hijacking. Blooms found on the money also indicated that it had went into the river months after the hijacking.
Hmm.
Science. In 1986, the year of my birth, the FBI kept 14 of the bills as evidence, and the rest of it was divided, with half of it going back to the airline's insurance company and the other half of it going to the kid that found it.
Hmm. That's cool.
That is cool. So let's see. I had 290 minus 14, 276. So he got like over 130. He got a lot of money.
Yeah,
He got a lot of money. He got about three grand for an 8-year-old kid in the 80s.
for sure.
That's a damn college fund right there.
It is.
In 2009, paleontologist Tom Kay, scientific illustrator Carol, I can't say your last name, and metal metallurgist. Oh, I didn't write his name down. Oops. Began their own investigation with their team having the name the Cooper Research Group.
Hmm.
The Cooper Research Group didn't get much further on the possible path of Dan or the money, but they also ran their own test. They tested Dan's tie and found several interesting minerals. Bismuth, cerium, and aluminum were found, just to name a few.
Oh, he's an airplane manufacturer.
But the real interesting one was unalloyed titanium.
Yep.
In the 70s, this metal was only used in manufacturing and fabricating. Most commonly, this metal was used to make parts for planes for Boeing.
Yep. He manufactured a plane.
2 hair samples and 8 cigarette butts were found at Dan's seat. One hair was destroyed as it was deemed useless. The other was put into evidence by the FBI for future testing, but in 2002 they went to find it and they couldn't find it and it had been lost.
Oh no.
Oh no. The butts were searched for prints, and when none were found, they were sent to the Vegas office. But in 1998, the FBI went to get them so that they could extract DNA from it and found out that someone at the office had destroyed them.
Oh no.
R&R. There are many theories about who Dan was. In a profile made by the FBI, they believed he may have had military experience due to his knowledge of the area and an apparent comfort with the parachutes. He was noted as being athletic for his age and that he didn't drink at all. He did smoke a lot, though. He smoked 8 cigarettes, so they averaged out that he smoked about a pack a day.
Right.
He also seemed extremely intelligent with his advanced knowledge of aviation procedures. It seemed Dan had taken some time to plan the hijacking. From the seat he chose, which was at the back of the cabin, so he had full view of the front of the cabin and nobody could come up behind him,
Right.
to his demand of multiple shoots to make people believe he was going to take a hostage, almost every part of his plan was meticulously thought out.
Hmm.
Now, the one part of his plan that investigators still do not know about 53 years later is what his plans was after he jumped. No
Right.
evidence of Dan or the ransom has ever, other than what the boy has found, have ever been found. There's been no evidence of his life or his death.
Hmm.
Zero evidence. Like, it's like he never existed.
Wow.
The money has never made its way back into circulation, or else the serial numbers would have like set off alarms.
Sure.
Many investigators believe that he probably died. They said that he was dressed in a suit with like loafers and jumped out of an airplane in the middle of the night, and it was
Right.
like rainy. Um and so they believe that it also would have been really difficult for him to land because of the conditions of it being so dark and whatnot. But some people believe that he may have had his gear for the jump stashed somewhere.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Plus, there's no way he had an accomplice. For one, they changed the original plan to make a stop to refuel. If you remember that, because all his like, do the wings at this, do this and that and that. And they're like, well, this is going to burn through our fuel. And he's like, all right, well, we'll restop here. Well, this is the
Right.
70s. They didn't have cell phones, so he couldn't like shoot somebody a text and be like, hey, meet me over here. And nobody actually witnessed him trying to communicate with anybody off of the plane.
Sure.
While many are in the dead Dan camp, there are those who believe he made it. Not only were investigators looking in the wrong place to begin with, because where they thought he jumped and where they initially started searching was miles away from where the boy found the money. Like miles and miles away from it.
Right.
Uh yeah, not only were investigators looking in the wrong place, leaving Dan the freedom to just walk away, in the months following Dan's hijacking, 5 men committed copycat crimes and all 5 survived their jumps.
Wow.
Some with even less favorable conditions. They said one dude was wearing a tank top, shorts, and flip flops.
I mean, if you're gonna skydive.
That's not what you wear when you skydive. You wear a suit. In November 1976, a grand jury in Portland returned an indictment in absentia against John Doe, aka Dan Cooper, for air piracy. Air piracy. I can't.
Yar.
I can't. And violation of the Hobbs Act. Should anyone ever be arrested, they will face prosecution regardless of when they are arrested.
Right.
So since they have a warrant for their arrest, that warrant will stay open. If they hadn't got the
Forever.
warrant, it'll stay open forever. If they hadn't got the warrant, then statute of limitations would have ran out years ago.
Right.
There are more than 1,000 suspects between 1971 and 2016.
Hmm.
Serious suspects.
Right.
One was Ted Braden, a special forces commando, skydiver, and felon. Many people within the special forces community believed that he was the hijacker.
Hmm.
They were like, yep, that guy. He did it. You ever meet people like that where you hear about something going, you're like, I bet that motherfucker has something to do with it right there.
Right.
He seemed like the type. That's what they were saying about this. They were like, this motherfucker?
Sure.
He was born in Ohio and served in the 101st Airborne in World War II. He was a part of a classified unit of Green Berets in Vietnam named MACV-SOG, so MACAVSOG, or the Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observation Group.
I mean, that would make sense to why he's so like calm during the whole thing.
He's calm. I mean, yeah, it would make sense, wouldn't it? But I don't know. This guy seems a little small PP. This guy seems a little like, I don't know, off his rocker.
Right.
Ted spent almost 2 years serving in Vietnam before going AWOL and becoming a mercenary in the Congo.
Jesus.
He went fucking Rambo, bro.
Right.
Legitimately.
Right.
He went Rambo.
This kind of people are scary.
For real. It was short lived as he was soon arrested by the CIA and taken back for a court martial. Due to his involvement in Makavsog, he was only given an honorable discharge and barred from ever serving again. And yet, I'm pretty sure my cousin went AWOL and he spent like 6 weeks in the brig or some shit. So,
Yeah.
okay. Don Duncan described Ted in the October 67 issue of Ramparts magazine as, quote, being someone with a secret death wish who continuously places himself in unnecessary danger but always seems to get away with it, end quote. A family member described Ted as, quote, the perfect combination of high intelligence and criminality, end quote.
Hmm.
Lynn Doyle, or L.D. Cooper, was named as a possible suspect by his niece Marla in 2011. She claims he was being super secretive in planning something super big the day before the hijacking. She was told that her uncles had went out hunting, but when LD came home, he was covered in a bloody shirt, or his shirt was covered in blood.
Hmm.
He claimed it had all come from an automobile accident.
Mm.
Ultimately, his DNA did not match that which they got off the tie.
Right.
Joe Lackich was a veteran, and this is real sad, y'all. This is real sad. Joe Lackich was a veteran whose daughter was killed after a botched hostage negotiations by the FBI, which I'm like, was she at Ruby Ridge?
I don't know.
Waco? I don't know. He and his wife sued the FBI and won in appeals court. Joe primarily became a suspect because of all of that, and he worked in an electronics capacitor factory where they used unalloyed titanium.
Hmm.
And remember what Dan replied when Tina asked him why he was doing what he was doing?
He had a grudge.
It's not because I have a grudge against your company. I just have a grudge, end quote.
Hmm.
Now, what's a stronger grudge than someone getting your kid killed, especially the FBI?
It's true.
It would not. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I hate the government enough right now, much less if they were responsible for my kid dying.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah, right. But admittedly, there are many, many more suspects with a mile long list of motives. There we go. Now, just 11 days before Dan's hijacking, Paul Joseph Sini hijacked a Canadian flight over Montana. Thankfully, he was stopped by passengers after Dan's. Oh, thankfully, he was stopped by passengers. This is what happens when I don't type it up.
yeah.
After Dan's successful hijacking, catch this, Bill. 15 similar hijackings were attempted that year.
Jesus.
None of them succeeded, although there were the 6 who successfully landed after jumping, but they were all arrested within like a week.
Well, I mean, they say once it's like what is it? Evolutionary memory. I'm not sure what they call it, but it's it's this thing where people like have memories and like think of things almost like spontaneously, but then like somewhere like on the other side of earth, someone that doesn't even know that person has the same
Thought at the exact same
thought or
moment.
memory at the exact same moment.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you ever notice though, like there tends to be an uptick when it comes to crime,
Yeah.
especially like wild crimes, like something crazy like this.
Mhm.
People see it and they're like, "Oh shit, I bet I could do that."
Yeah.
And like 6 guys were like, "Hey, I bet I can do that." And they fucking did.
Right.
They were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna jump out this fucking plane." Wee! Like I think someday we will know who Dan Cooper is. I do. I think with technology that we
Think we'll
have,
find him.
I don't think we're gonna find him. I think we're gonna know who he is,
Right.
but I think he'll be dead.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna be long dead by the time we find out who it is. So nobody will ever go to
It'd
jail
be
for
like a
this.
note on his grave. Like,
Right.
hey, I was DB Cooper.
Right. It'll be like, yeah, like on his tombstone, it'll be like Bill Johnson, aka Dan Cooper.
I
Here
got away,
lies,
bitches.
here lies $100,000.
Have
So,
fun.
right.
I did.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I don't think he'll ever stand trial for the crime. Oh yeah, and as much as they charge for every single feature on a flight, I'm not going to lose money over the fact. I'm not going to lose sleep over the fact that nobody's ever found that money.
Right.
Because
For
why do
sure.
I have to pay $24 to pick which seat I want to sit on? Allegiant
Or $8 for a bag.
for a bottle of water.
Yeah.
Like what? Oh yeah. Guess what? It's going to be $60 if you want to bring a 40-pound suitcase.
Right.
Motherfucker. What? You want Wi-Fi? That's $20.
Yeah.
I'll just oh yeah, that oxygen, that's gonna be 50 cents a second. Like, god dang, y'all, nickel and diming us to death.
For sure.
It really does feel like we're being nickel and dimed to death.
Yep.
But so what do you think of what do you think of DB Cooper?
It's interesting.
Yeah, you think we'll ever find out who he is?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think he'll ever reveal himself.
Well, I don't think he'll ever reveal himself, but they have his tie,
Right.
which they've extracted DNA out. They've extracted a partial DNA sample off of it.
But if he's so smart and he knows that there's a warrant still out for him, I don't think he'll ever
Well,
show up.
I think he's going to be caught via family DNA.
Mm-hmm.
I think somebody, because I'm pretty sure they have him in like CODIS and NamUs and stuff. So someday somebody is going to get on Ancestry or 23andMe and they're going to click that little opt-in button like I did,
Mm-hmm.
where their DNA can be used in criminal cases.
Right.
And they're going to find his long lost nibbling or something.
I don't think they'll find him here if they do.
I don't think they'll ever find him, but I think they'll find somebody.
I think he's out of the country.
I think they'll find somebody he's related to and they'll find out his name.
Right.
But I think he'll be dead.
Yeah.
He'll be dead. I mean, it's already been 53 years. If he was in his 40s, he's in his 90s now.
Yeah.
If he's still alive, he's dead.
Dan, you want to be on our show?
DB Dan? Dan DB Cooper? You out there?
Even if you're a ghost.
If you not me looking at the light, like you want to make that light flicker up there? Dan Cooper? You hijacked an airplane in 1971? Got $200,000 in ransom? Flicker the light? Tell me where it's at? Where's that money? I wonder if you could still get like a reward if you found it.
I don't know.
Be like, listen, I found this money and I'm pretty sure I know where it belongs, but I thought I'd bring it to y'all, but I would like some of it
For sure.
back because I found it and y'all been trying to find it for 50 fucking years.
Yeah.
You've never found it in over 50 years.
It
is kind of wild.
I think they
though.
probably just let you have it.
I mean, they would probably have to like test it and like, you know, do all the investigation and stuff on it. But I have a feeling after a while they'd probably just give it to you. Yeah.
Right.
They'd be like, well, you found it, it's yours now. Kind of like the kid that found it on the beach.
Yeah.
They're like, here you go, kid. God, could you imagine? Fucking 8-year-old. $3,000. Thanks, mister.
Right.
All right. Well, that was fun. I want to know who he is. I don't know if we'll ever know. I might have to go sleuthing for him.
I want to say it was a Beastie Boys song that had DB Cooper in the lyrics.
Maybe.
But
it's possible. I wouldn't be surprised. All right. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you haven't, please follow us on Instagram and now TikTok.
Yay.
TikTok. Search for the Paranormal Lovers. I don't actually have shit on TikTok. I think I've shared like one video.
Yeah.
But we don't have any followers. So if y'all want me to make stuff, then you got to follow me.
Right.
I ain't working for free. You can also search that name on YouTube to find our videos. Is that a cat?
The cat wants in.
Jesus. They're crazy when they want in.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to support the pod and get some dope merch, go to theparanormallovers.threadless.com to see our new designs and get in on our sale. $15 t-shirts and up to $35 off. everything else in the shop. If you would like to become a regular supporter of the podcast and get access to our true crime show, Deadly Lovers, head on over to patreon.com/paranormal lovers. You can try for 1 week for free and cancel it if you don't want it, or all that good stuff. And the $5 tier, like I said, you get the crime podcast. So
it's a free show.
It's not a free show. They have to pay for it.
But, yeah, it's an extra show. That's what I meant to say. Extra show.
I mean, listen, you get 4 episodes of a true crime podcast for less than a cup of coffee from Starbucks.
Yeah.
Literally.
It's worth it.
Like, I personally think it's worth it. So
you get to see me cringe and
yeah, he's not a big fan of true crime, so when I'm telling him stuff,
do some true crime,
it's a whole lot of Jesus.
What
God,
the
that's
hell?
so sad. A whole lot of that's so sad. God, so sad. That's so sad. Jesus, that's so sad. It's a lot of that. So
yeah.
All right, guys. We appreciate you joining us, and we will see you guys next week.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.